Virtual to reality. Trevor Sebastian.
I grew up in the video game revolution. Every kid had a Game Boy, and for a shy and reserved kid, I was hooked. I remember many late nights and lazy weekends playing for countless hours on end, and I loved every moment of it. But the old saying does ring true. You can have too much of a good thing. Fast forward, and I was 22 years old, and for years I've been playing a game called World of Warcraft. During this time, it was not uncommon for me to wake up, play video games, and go to bed, only taking time to eat and use the restroom. You could say that it was a bit of an unhealthy obsession. But one night was different than the others, because this night, when I was falling asleep, I looked up at my ceiling and, and I began to cry and cry and cry. At the moment, I didn't quite understand it, but looking back, it made a whole lot of sense. For all the time that I was spending in the virtual world, my real world was falling apart. It was at that moment in time I realized it was finally time to make a change. And then I began my journey, but not a journey in the virtual world, a journey in the real one. Luckily, all my time playing games wasn't all a waste, because just like in video games, the real world has monsters to slay and bosses to defeat. And so I grabbed my hypothetical sword and my shield, and I stepped into the very first part of my journey to fight the very first boss, which is going to be fear. You see, I've been a very timid person for most of my life. I really didn't like to try new things, and I like to be by myself a lot. But fear is like a monster that lives under your bed. It likes to growl menacingly. It likes to reach at you with its claws. And of course, your first reaction is to pull the covers over your head and pretend that it's not there. But as we all know, it doesn't work that way. And in fact, fear only seems to get stronger the more that you hide. The only way to actually destroy this fear is to get down on your knees and to look it straight in the eye. So that's what I did. Slowly but surely, I began to push myself out of my comfort zone. I started talking to strangers and making small talk with them. I started opening up to my friends and family. I started trying new things that I would never have done before. And of course, this wasn't easy. I remember days when I come home absolutely exhausted because I was just so scared of everything. But I continued to look fear in the eyes, and slowly but surely, that monster under my bed became smaller and smaller and smaller. And nowadays, I almost don't even realize that it's there. Finally, I could say that I conquered the first boss on my journey, and fear was defeated. Now, there was not enough time to celebrate because the next boss is right around the corner. You see, when you spend your life clutched by fear, you don't have a lot of time to think about yourself and who you are. So, the second boss on my journey was to cultivate self confidence. For most of my life, I didn't do a whole lot of things. And if someone were to ask me, hey, tell me about you, I would say, I played video games. And that was about it. So I started looking around in the world and trying to identify things that really stuck to me, that made me feel more like who I was. And oh man, did I take everything in. I was like a sponge. I listened to everyone who had something interesting to say, a new thing to learn, and I took it in one by one. Instead of Trevor, the video game player, in the span of about a year, I became Trevor, the humanitarian, stoic, yogi, libertarian, everything that you could possibly think of. I couldn't even pronounce half the things that I now was. And finally, whenever I talked to somebody, I could connect with them. I had something in common with them. It was wonderful. And I could say that I finally cultivated self-confidence and beat the second boss on my journey. But something didn't quite feel right. Because now I had all these titles and all these things I knew about myself, but I couldn't quite shake a feeling that I had. This feeling, it was a feeling of being fake. And I thought about it. Why do I feel this way? I shouldn't feel this way. I should feel so confident in myself. But I realized I wasn't trying to learn about myself. I wasn't trying to be me. I was trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be. And that wasn't going to work. I realized that I put a bunch of armor on, just like in my video games, but it's become too heavy. There was far too much. So I had to strip off that armor one by one and really find the things that stuck with me, the things that really made me feel like who I was as a person and made me Trevor. So over time, and with a whole lot of self-reflection, I eventually realized who I was. And I was able to look at myself in the mirror and tell myself that I love myself. Now that was something worth celebrating. Now I could say my second boss was defeated. I had cultivated self-confidence. And at this point, you might say, Trevor, your life must be great. You've defeated fear, you've cultivated self-confidence, but there's actually a third boss that I still haven't conquered just yet. That third boss is finding my purpose. You see, we all only have so much time on this earth, and at some point, we will not be here anymore. The only thing that we'll have left are the actions that we took while we were here. And although we all have fears that we need to conquer, we all wish we'd have a little more confidence in ourselves. And of course, a lot of us are trying to find our purpose, our reason for being in this earth. And yes, real life is a lot like a video game, but there's one key difference that I haven't quite told you just yet. That biggest difference is that the real world, you only get one life. So you might as well make the best use of it. Thank you.